Worry is a silent thief. It creeps into the mind unnoticed, planting seeds of fear and doubt, growing roots deep into the heart. It disguises itself as responsibility, as careful planning, even as concern for the future, but beneath it all, worry is a chain. It binds the soul, clouds the mind, and weakens the spirit. It drains energy from the present and blinds us to the beauty of now. Worry creates problems that do not yet exist and magnifies challenges far beyond their true size. It speaks in a voice that insists something will go wrong, and then demands we pay attention to what hasn't happened yet. This is not foresight, it's fear pretending to be wisdom. There is a great illusion in the mind that says worry equals preparation. But worry has never solved a single problem. It has never made anyone stronger, wiser, or more capable. On the contrary, it paralyzes action, confuses the judgment, and leads to hesitation where there should be clarity. It robs the ability to move forward with confidence because it feeds on imagined outcomes that may never come to pass. Worry convinces the mind to live in tomorrow while ignoring the power and possibility of today. And in doing so, it disconnects us from the very source of peace and direction, our spiritual center. Deep within every person is a well of calm, a place of knowing, where guidance flows not from anxiety but from divine wisdom. But that voice becomes harder to hear when worry is loud. The mind, filled with fearful thoughts, cannot receive the whispers of truth that come from above. It is not that God is silent, but that worry makes us deaf to his direction. When the heart is gripped by fear, it becomes difficult to recognize that we are already being led, already being guided, already being held. This is why worry is not just unhelpful, it is dangerous. It is not merely a bad habit or a natural reaction, it is a rejection of faith. It is a declaration, even if unconscious, that God is not in control, that divine timing is not enough, that we must handle everything alone. And yet, every moment we spend worrying is a moment we declare that fear has more authority than faith. The more we worry, the more we reinforce the belief that something terrible is inevitable, and the more we close ourselves off from miracles. But the truth remains, worry is a choice. It may not feel like one, especially when it rises automatically in response to uncertainty, but it is. The moment we become aware of the presence of worry, we are also given the power to choose something higher. We can choose trust. We can choose to shift our focus from problems to purpose, from fear to faith, from chaos to calm. We can pause, breathe, and remind ourselves that no matter how uncertain the future appears, there is a power greater than us that sees the path clearly. That power does not lead through panic. It leads through peace. The beginning of release comes in recognition. Recognizing worry as an intruder, not a companion. Naming it, calling it out, and denying it authority over the mind. When worry is exposed, its power begins to fade. When we stop giving it attention, it stops growing. And in that space of release, something greater emerges. The quiet assurance that we are not alone, that we are not without direction, and that we do not need to have all the answers. The path ahead is not made visible by overthinking. It is made clear through surrender. Letting go of worry is not giving up, it is giving in to something far more powerful. It is the first step in allowing divine wisdom to take the lead. The mind is a master at convincing itself that control is security. It clings to plans, schedules, and predictions as though they are guarantees. It builds expectations, forms attachments, and outlines the future in detail, believing that if it just tries hard enough, it can bend life to its will. But this belief is a deception. Control, as most people understand it, is an illusion, an exhausting chase after certainty in a world designed to be unpredictable. No matter how carefully we craft our lives, the truth remains. We are not the ultimate author of every outcome. Trying to control everything is not a sign of strength, it is often a sign of fear. Fear that things won't work out unless we interfere. Fear that God's plan won't unfold unless we manage every detail. But when the desire for control becomes a way of life, peace becomes impossible. Life becomes a series of calculations, not a flow of grace. The burden grows heavier with each step, and the weight of expectation crushes joy. In trying to play the role of the divine, we forget that we were created to follow, not force. There is a freedom that comes in admitting, I don't have to control everything. I was never meant to. There is a strength in surrendering the illusion, not because we are giving up, but because we are giving in to something wiser. The power that holds the universe in balance also holds our lives in its hands. That power doesn't require our stress to function. It doesn't need our anxiety to operate. It simply asks for our trust. Control is a burden we were never meant to carry. Faith is the gift we were always meant to hold. When we release control, we create space for divine order to take over. We become aligned with something higher than strategy, something more powerful than planning. And in that alignment, everything begins to move more smoothly. Not because every outcome is perfect, but because our hearts are at peace with whatever comes. The illusion of control may bring temporary comfort, but true peace only comes when we lay that illusion down and let God lead. Beneath the noise of the world and the clutter of constant thought, there is a voice that never shouts, yet never fades. It is the voice of God within the quiet guide that speaks through intuition, peace, and inner knowing. It does not argue, it does not demand, it simply invites. But for many, that voice goes unheard, not because it is absent, but because it is drowned out by the volume of worry and the insistence of the mind. When we are caught up in fear, racing thoughts, or relentless doubt, we are too distracted to hear what has been speaking all along. This inner guidance is not reserved for the few or the spiritually elite. It is planted in every heart, placed there by divine design. It is the compass that points not just to what is logical, but to what is true. Yet it requires stillness to be heard. It requires trust to be followed. Most people are not lacking direction. They are simply disconnected from the one place it never stops flowing. The voice of God doesn't scream over anxiety. It waits patiently beneath it. It waits for the moment we stop grasping for answers and become willing to receive them. The world trains the mind to look outward toward experts, strategies, and circumstances for clarity. But divine direction flows inward, not outward. It arises as a quiet conviction, a sudden clarity, or an unshakable peace that defies logic. This voice may not always align with what the mind expects, but it always aligns with truth. It may lead in ways that seem uncertain, yet it always leads toward freedom. The more we learn to listen, the more we realize it has been guiding us all along Jivan through the times we thought we were alone. To reconnect with this voice is to return to the center. It is to remember that divine wisdom is not something we chase, it is something we uncover. When we silence the worry, the fear, and the noise, we realize that we were never without direction. We just forgot how to listen. And in that listening, we begin to understand the power of letting go, not to lose control, but to find the guidance that was always within us. Fear is a powerful force, but so is faith. Both ask for belief in something unseen. Fear asks us to believe in the worst. It projects failure, loss, rejection, and struggle onto the blank canvas of the future. It plays scenes in the mind that haven't happened and may never happen. It convinces us to prepare for pain before pain even arrives. But faith, on the other hand, asks us to believe in the best. It says that even in uncertainty, something good is unfolding. It whispers that we are not alone, that we are being guided, and that every step is leading somewhere meaningful, even if we cannot yet see the destination. Fear narrows the path. It focuses the eyes only on danger. It tenses the body, clouds the thoughts, and makes it difficult to move forward. Fear says, stay where it's safe, don't risk, don't trust, don't believe. But faith widens the horizon. It opens the heart, clears the mind, and strengthens the spirit. It gives the courage to act, even when the outcome is unclear. Faith does not mean we are blind to difficulties. It means we are not controlled by them. It gives us the ability to see with spiritual eyes, beyond the visible circumstances, and into the realm of divine possibility. The choice between fear and faith is not a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. Fear may knock at the door every morning, but faith answers. Faith doesn't need to know the whole planet, just needs to trust the next step. It doesn't ask for guarantees. It rests in the assurance that there is a higher plan already in motion. And that assurance allows us to move forward not with panic, but with peace. Faith isn't fragile. It is the fire that burns even in the coldest night. It is the strength that rises when everything else falls away, and it grows stronger every time we choose it over fear. When we anchor our hearts in faith, we begin to see the world differently. We stop expecting disaster and start expecting grace. We stop preparing for the worst and start welcoming the best. Because when faith is the foundation, there is no storm strong enough to shake us. Trust is not weakness, it is spiritual strength. It is the quiet but powerful decision to release the need to know everything, control everything, and fix everything. Trust says, I may not understand this right now, but I believe there is meaning in it. I believe there is purpose in the unseen. It is the soul's way of reaching beyond the surface of life and anchoring itself in something higher than logic or circumstance. Trust is not the absence of questions. It is the refusal to let those questions steal peace. It is the deep knowing that even in silence, even in delay, even in uncertainty, God is still working. Many people struggle to trust because they confuse it with passivity. They think trust means doing nothing. But trust is not doing nothing, it is doing what is yours to do and releasing the rest. It is showing up with a heart open to guidance, but no longer weighed down by the obsession of how everything must unfold. Trust allows space for grace to move. It creates room for divine timing, for unexpected solutions, for quiet miracles. The more we let go, the more we receive. But as long as we grip the situation with clenched fists, we block the very flow we pray for. The principle of trust teaches us that we are not responsible for every outcome, only our alignment. When we are aligned with peace, with truth, and with spiritual clarity, the path becomes smoother, not because life is without challenges, but because we are no longer resisting what is. We move in harmony with something greater than ourselves, and in that harmony we find rest. Not rest as in inactivity, but rest as in confidence. Confidence that we are being led, protected, and supported even when we don't yet see the evidence. The power of trust is that it shifts our focus. It turns our attention from fear to faith, from confusion to clarity, from striving to surrender. And when we truly embrace trust, we no longer demand answers from life. Instead, we walk with peace, knowing that the answers will arrive exactly when they are meant to. In that space, anxiety begins to dissolve, the heart becomes lighter, and slowly the way forward reveals itself step by step, moment by moment, guided not by stress, but by a quiet and sacred trust. One of the greatest obstacles to peace is the obsession with the question how. How will it work out? How will the problem be solved? How will the door open, the healing come, the breakthrough appear? The mind craves certainty, and when it doesn't have it, it begins to spiral. It tries to fill the unknown with predictions, assumptions, and scenarios, many of which are rooted in fear rather than faith. But the truth is, we are not responsible for the how. We are responsible for the trust, the alignment, and the obedience to take the next right step. Trying to control the how is like trying to control the wind. It is energy wasted. It pulls the mind in 10 directions and leaves the heart anxious. The need to know every detail of how things will unfold is not a sign of intelligence, it is often a sign of spiritual fatigue. It reflects a lack of trust in the unseen hand that is always at work. Letting go of the how does not mean giving up on a goal or a dream. It means releasing the need to micromanage the path that leads there. It means stepping back and allowing a higher wisdom to orchestrate what the mind cannot yet understand. The greatest transformations rarely happen through logic alone. They happen when something unexpected falls into place, when a conversation changes everything, when a door opens that no one could have predicted. These are not accidents, they are divine responses to surrender. They are the result of placing faith above fear and trust above calculation. When we focus on the next step, not the entire staircase, we create space for miracles to meet us along the way. Letting go of the how is an act of humility and spiritual maturity. It is saying, I trust that what is meant for me will find me, even if I don't know the route. It is refusing to let anxiety fill the gaps between action and outcome. And in that release, we return to a simple truth. We are being led, not by force, not by fear, but by a divine hand that knows the way even when we don't. Stillness is often misunderstood in a world that celebrates noise, speed, and constant movement. We are taught that productivity equals value, that busyness equals progress, and that stillness is somehow weakness. But spiritually, the opposite is true. Stillness is not emptiness, it is fullness without chaos. It is not inactivity, it is deep, conscious presence. In the stillness, the soul realigns with truth. In the quiet, the voice of God becomes clear again. It's not that guidance disappears during chaos, it's that we can't hear it over the roar of our own thoughts. When the mind is racing and emotions are scattered, we lose the ability to discern. Every voice becomes louder than the one that truly matters. Worry thrives in this environment. It multiplies in the noise. It feeds off the confusion. But when we learn to quiet the mind and return to a place of inner calm, everything begins to shift. The answers don't always come immediately, but our ability to receive them is restored. Stillness is not passive, it is powerful. It is where clarity begins, where peace takes root, and where fear starts to lose its grip. In stillness, we are reminded that we are not the center of everything. We are not alone in our effort. We are part of a greater design, a greater rhythm, and we are not required to carry every burden on our own. The more we resist silence, the louder life becomes. But the more we embrace stillness, the more space we give to wisdom, insight, and spiritual strength. Strength does not always roar. Sometimes strength is the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to panic. I don't need to chase. I am held, I am guided, and I am enough. Choosing stillness is not always easy, especially when the world demands movement. But it is in that stillness that we find power the world can't offer, peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, strength that doesn't come from effort, and direction that doesn't come from the mind. It comes from the spirit. And when that stillness becomes our foundation, no storm can shake us. We become anchored, not in outcomes, but in presence, not in control, but in quiet trust. There is a natural rhythm to life that cannot be rushed, and divine timing honors that rhythm in a way our minds often resist. We want things quickly, answers, outcomes, progress, but God doesn't move according to urgency, He moves according to wisdom. There is nothing delayed in the divine. What feels like waiting is often preparation. What feels like silence is often alignment. We may look at a closed door and see rejection, but from a higher perspective, it may be protection. The timing of our lives is not random. Every moment, even the ones that seem stagnant or confusing, is woven into a larger story that is unfolding with precision and purpose. Patience is more than a virtue, it's an act of spiritual trust. It's choosing to believe that if something hasn't happened yet, it's either not for us or it's not time. We do not see all ends, but God does. He sees the pieces we can't, the timing we can't calculate, and the people and places we haven't yet encountered. When we demand that things unfold on our terms, we interfere with a process that is far more intelligent than our personal plans. But when we surrender to divine timing, we find rest in the present, even if the future remains unknown. Sometimes the delay is not in the promise, it's in our readiness to receive it. There are lessons we must walk through, growth that must take place, and pruning that must happen so that we don't just arrive at the blessing, but are able to carry it with wisdom and humility. Trusting God's timing is not passive waiting, it is active faith. It is showing up each day, doing what is yours to do, while leaving space for the things only God can arrange. When we let go of our timeline and trust His, peace returns, the struggle fades. The anxiety that comes from trying to force something to happen gives way to confidence that nothing is being withheld that is meant for us. God's timing is never early, never late, is perfect, always. And when we truly believe that, we stop striving and start allowing. We stop rushing and start listening. We stop worrying and start resting. One of the greatest sources of anxiety is our attachment to outcomes. We define success by how things turn out. We place our peace in results. We decide our worth based on whether plans unfold the way we imagined. But this is a heavy burden to carry, a burden we were never meant to hold. When we tie our emotional well-being to outcomes, we live in constant tension. We live in fear of failure, in dread of disappointment, in suspicion of every delay. But the truth is, the outcome is not our responsibility. Obedience is, faith is, surrender is. When we release the need to control outcomes, we reclaim our freedom. We no longer walk through life trying to predict every twist and turn. We stop holding our breath, waiting for things to validate us. Instead, we begin to move from a place of peace, not pressure. We trust that if we are doing what is aligned, what is true, what is led by God, the results will take care of themselves. Maybe not in the way we expected, but always in the way that's needed. And when we look back, we often find that the plans we clung to were smaller than the life we ended up living. The burden of outcomes makes everything feel like a test. Every decision becomes a source of stress. Every path is weighed down by what if. But releasing that burden opens the heart to something greater. It invites divine intelligence to guide the process and opens us to possibilities we never would have considered on our own. It teaches us to walk not for the result, but for the presence of peace. It teaches us to ask not, did it work out, but was I faithful? Did I trust? Did I grow? Letting go of the outcome is not letting go of intention. It's not about becoming careless, it's about becoming fearless. It's trusting that the destination is in God's hands, and our role is simply to keep walking with Him. When we do this, anxiety fades, and confidence rises not because we know what will happen, but because we know who is in control. The outcome is His, the peace is ours. There is a profound difference between being driven and being led. Being driven is fueled by pressure. It often comes from a place of proving, striving, or fear of falling behind. It is restless, relentless, and rarely peaceful. It pushes us with thoughts like, not enough yet, do more, move faster. And even when it achieves results, it rarely brings deep fulfillment. It's exhausting because it's rooted in self-effort and control. But being led is entirely different. It comes from a place of surrender, of listening, of trusting the quiet pull of purpose that doesn't demand but draws. Being led is not about racing, it's about aligning. When we are driven, we move ahead of peace. We run ahead of clarity. We act before wisdom has had time to speak. But when we are led, we move in step with divine timing. We wait when it's time to wait, and we act when it's time to act. There is no panic in it, no pushing. There is only flow unforced, unhurried, and deeply grounded. This way of living is not about abandoning ambition. It's about releasing attachment. It's choosing to live from purpose instead of pressure, from calling instead of comparison. Living led means we don't chase outcomes. We follow guidance. We make decisions not out of fear, but out of peace. We no longer feel the need to prove ourselves because we understand we're already known, already held, already chosen. And in that truth, we find rest. The world may not understand this rhythm. It may look slower, quieter, or less aggressive, but it is more powerful than anything driven by fear or ego, because what is led by God is sustained by God. What begins in surrender is supported by grace. To live led is to trust that our life doesn't have to shout to be meaningful. It just has to follow the voice that leads us to still waters, even in the middle of storms. It is choosing peace over performance, direction over demand. And in that choice, we finally begin to experience life as it was meant to be lived, not as a race to win, but as a journey to walk, hand in hand with the one who knows the way.